sticking with MLS because apparently Miguel Almiron is set to return to Atlanta United, the MLS side, working to finalize a deal worth approximately $13.5 million with Newcastle United. Almiron left Atlanta United in January 2019 and has since scored 30 goals for Newcastle. His contract expires there June 2026. All of that, of course, after winning the MLS Cup back in 2018 with Tata Martino's side. Jeff, what do you make of this possible move with Almiron's probably return here with Atlanta United?
Well, I mean, Atlanta has made no secret that they're after a DP striker and a DP winger. And certainly Miguel Almiron satisfies the DP winger part of that equation. I'm hearing they're willing to pay, about $13 million, which is considerably less than what they got for him when Almiron first moved to Newcastle. The DP striker part of that equation is a guy from Middlesbrough. His name's Latte Lath from the Ivory Coast. He's banging in the goals for Middlesbrough right now. That would be a tough loss for Borough in the middle of the season, as they're trying to push for promotion. But, Atlanta has not hesitated to throw money around in the past. And, with $13 million for Almiron, $20 million for Lath, they're doing it again. So, from what I understand, those deals are moving forward. They're very close. I will caution that we've seen deals fall apart in the past at the last hour, but everything I'm hearing is that the folks in Atlanta are very confident that this is going to get done, and it'll be a revamped Atlanta United side that takes the field in 2025. But again, we'll see if they can get these deals over the line.
And if it does get over the line, Casey, what would you think of seeing Almiron back at Atlanta United, where he was very successful?
Yeah, I think it's really easy sometimes for a player that's really familiar with the surrounding. And clearly Almiron did a good job at Newcastle. He's kind of come into that equation now where, he's a sub. He's not the starter that he was those first few years. And maybe he sees the writing on the wall a little bit here and he could stay there. But if he can get back to some place that he really enjoyed, his family enjoyed, it can be a win-win for both Atlanta, Newcastle, and Miggy as well. So I think, if he enjoyed his time, which we all think he did at Atlanta, I don't see any reason why he wouldn't enjoy going back.
He'll be 31 in February. He's by no means old. He's not washed up, but he's not exactly the player that left Atlanta United. I mean, those over 2 seasons he was with Atlanta United, he was must-see TV. Him and Joseph Martinez, every single time Atlanta played, you had to watch this game because they were going to do something crazy. He was among the best playmakers, if not the best playmaker in Major League Soccer. And for a reason, they sold him for $26 million to Newcastle. That was 6-7 years ago. And let's be honest, the good moments at Newcastle were few and far between. A few years ago, he had a double-digit goal-scoring season, and they made the Champions League 4th place finish. Newcastle. It was a different Almiron. It was an Almiron that Major League Soccer fans, Atlanta fans certainly knew that was capable of being, but it wasn't a player that we were used to seeing in the Premier League. He's lost a little of that luster. Can he regain it? 31 years of age, you're not old where you're washed up physically. He's still that type of player where he gives his all. He still has the technical ability. Does he have that fire? Can he regain that confidence? That remains to be seen. But what a savvy piece of business by Garth Lagerwey, who could be one of the, if not the best exec, one of the best execs in Major League Soccer. Case knows him very well from his time at the Seattle Sounders. This man knows the buttons to push. He knows that he's got in the ownership group there in Atlanta with Arthur Blank, he's got a deep pocket. He's got an owner willing to invest because we've seen Atlanta United invest. Maybe not wisely in the past, but now with Garth Lagerwey, if you can pull these 2 moves off, we're talking about Atlanta United again as a super club, as the elite within Major League Soccer that accompanies that amazing fan base that they have. This is a win-win if they can pull it off and the beginning to the rebirth of Atlanta United. Yeah,
you're mentioning that this is a very different Almiron, but he's coming back to a very different Atlanta United. We know that he isn't going to have his buddy, for starters, Joseph Martinez.
Yeah, and Joseph's got his own problems now. Joseph's not the same Joseph Martinez is now in San Jose. That knee certainly has seen its wear and tear. And you're right, a different Atlanta United. I will remind you, this Atlanta United knocked out Inter Miami. This Atlanta United made it essentially to the semifinals of whatever, equivalent of Major League Soccer semifinals. So there's something to build on. And if there was one person I'd bet in this industry to right the ship, it would be a person like Garth Lagaway. And now Chris Henderson there with Atlanta United. But you're right. He may not have the pieces, but he's going to get the pieces.
Yeah. All right, sticking with MLS here, but they announced on Tuesday their roster rules update of 2025, and they announced their cash for player trade rules. We broke it down for you. Teams may use an unlimited amount of cash to acquire a player, up to 2 players, and trade away up to 2 players per year for cash. They may convert revenue generated by these trades to general allocation money. Now, the cash spent to acquire a player via trade will be applied to the player's salary budget charge. When using cash to acquire a player via trade, no other forms of compensation may be included in the trade terms. Jeff, obviously, this was just announced on Tuesday, but breaking it down a little bit, essentially, what does this boil down to for MLS?
Well, it means they're getting closer to the rest of the world and how the international transfer market does business. I mean, MLS is familiar with it because that's how they transfer international players in and out of the league. So now this is kind of an intra-league mechanism. And I think it's something that sporting directors have been pushing for. From what I'm told, just in talking to a couple sporting directors around the league, you're going to gradually see general allocation money not take up as much importance in trades. Granted, there are limitations, 2 outgoing, 2 incoming, but you're going to see GAM, I think, used for smaller level deals, for acquiring homegrowns from other teams, that kind of situation. And I fully expect that this is going to be expanded upon in future years. I think in some respects this is a little bit of a test run, but I think you'll see it gradually expand in years to come. I would say one also important aspect to this is players are now going to get 10% of any cash that changes hands. So, I think that's something that the MLS Players Union is very excited about. They always want to try to get, or put more money into the pockets of the players. And so that's a win for them.
Herc are clearly happy about it. But Casey, what do you think of this?
Well, I think MLS has, over the years, kind of eroded a lot of their rules that they put in place initially. There was a lot of ownership that had said, we want nothing to do with free agency. There's now a level of free agency. And this was one of those things what they didn't want to have in place, were teams competing with each other. There's a reason why you have those discovery players. That way, 2 MLS teams can't compete with each other to buy somebody's rights. That, oh, nope, they have the rights, you don't get to compete with it for that player's signing. So now you're starting to get this erosion of some of the fundamental policies that MLS put in place from day one. And to Jeff's point, I think it's a good thing. I think it gets them more on par with the rest of the world in doing business. And I think that will only be a good thing going down the line. Now, what I would love to see at some stage is do away with all these GAM, SAM, RAM. Just put a real salary cap together and let teams move their money the way they feel best fit for their fan base and for their opportunity to be successful. If you want to give one player, $24,999,000 and then have the rest of your players, all make $1, hey, great. Or do you want to spread it out in a certain way that you think you can win championships? And look, if you still want to have maybe one DP to sign a Neymar or a Messi or a Thierry Henry or, some of those marquee players, David Beckham, like the rule was made for, fine. But I'd just like to see it be more transparent and just more the way the rest of the world does business.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Case. I think we're both aligned in trying to do business the rest of the world does business. And I think they're trying to do that, and you can see them trying to align the transfer window, at least in the winter, with the rest of the world, which is Major League Soccer's right now main transfer window heading into a season. What I will say is this confusion is not only amongst the casuals. There are people who take Major League Soccer very seriously, and they couldn't tell you the GAM. They couldn't tell you the TAM. They're going to have a hard time figuring out with the 2 buyouts here. They're going to have all these different issues, and that needs to go away. It needs to be more transparent and easier to digest. From a player standpoint, I can tell you, from having many moves in Major League Soccer and not being compensated for those moves, and then going to a league that compensates you for those transfers, how much of a difference those transfers make in your life. We're talking about sometimes life-changing money for those around you, for you and those around you. So for a player, regardless of how minimal that is, 10%, people need to realize there is a transfer fee. That transfer fee, the player will get 10% of that. That is money going into the player's pocket. This is a game changer, and why you see the MLS Players Union tweeting about that, why you see them, showing the importance of things like that. This is what the rest of the world does, and Major League Soccer is now following suit.
So will players like Acosta, Evander, Driussi, will they be able to benefit from this now?
Well, that's a whole different thing there, because and this is crazy to me because these are DP players. This is a whole different player that Case is talking about, in a way trying to manipulate the Major League Soccer system in their favor. And what I mean is, you look at players like Luciano Costa. Luciano Costa is an MLS MVP in this league. He was an afterthought when he left DC United and went to Atlas, and when it didn't go well in Atlas, and he comes to Major League Soccer, and since he gives him an opportunity, and on the final day of his season, the player meetings, the exit meetings, he says, I'm going to leave, tells the press I'm going to leave without telling anybody. Evander, final day, tweets something against his coach, the Portland Timbers, that he wants out after being in the Danish league and Portland giving him an opportunity, making him a prime player in this league, an MVP candidate. And Sebastian Driussi, who made $6.7 million, who scored 8 goals, 4 assists last year, for a player that was a prime player in this league to say, I'm not going to show up, screw my teammates, I'm going to think about myself, not show up. And for his $7 million salary that he makes annually, he gets fined $1,000 for not showing up. $1,000. I had a situation.
Pocket change for him, right?
I had a situation in Mexico with the club that owed me money. Okay, they wanted to send me somewhere else. I said, nope, I'm not going there. On a Friday, this was the phone call. That Monday, I'm at the facilities waiting to train because under FIFA law, I miss a certain amount of days of training, they void the contract. This man had no issue with that because of the MLS rules that Casey was saying, these internal rules that they place on themselves. Instead, the loophole he found, $1,000.
Yeah, exactly. Like I said, pocket change at the end of the day, but these rules are interesting in how they find those loopholes, as you said.